Hey everybody, welcome to Football Night New York Living Room Edition. Jonas Schwartz, happy to be along with Jeane Coakley, Ralph Vacchiano, back from vacation, and now getting ready to go as NFL teams are getting ready to go with training camp on the way. Another busy week of NFL news. We have players who opted out. I guess the Jets opted out of dealing with Jamal Adams as they traded him, and that's where we begin. They got a big haul back. 2 first-rounders, a third-rounder. The Jets threw back Seattle a 4th-rounder in addition to Adams. And, Jeane, right off the bat, did the Jets make the right move trading Jamal Adams here?
Guys, I don't think they had any choice to not trade him. I mean, I think Adam Gase said it right. We want players who want to be here. It's a win-win for both sides, and I think the Jets had no choice after the article in the Daily News came out saying, you know, Jamal did not want to be there. So, yes, I think they had to do it. And, Jonas, are you okay with all of this?
Well, listen, there's a lot of mixed emotions involved in this because, you know, both you guys know I wanted him to stay. But that article and him going on the record, Ralph, to very personally sort of crush the coach and the GM. You know, Willie Colon used to say something to me, which is if you didn't like someone's behavior before you give him the money, you're not going to like it anymore after he gets the money. It's only going to get worse. And that, you know, a theory or statement kept ringing in my head throughout all this. So I don't think he left him much of a choice, Ralph.
No, he probably didn't, although, you know, his words rang a little bit hollow because if he was so upset with Adam Gase and everybody else in the organization, you know, a month earlier, he would have gladly signed a long-term contract with him and pronounced himself the greatest Jet ever. So I think the Jets felt like if they didn't have that big offer, they could have calmed him down and talked him through this. And there's certainly a lot of evidence in the NFL of players who, you know, popped off on an organization and then calmed down when they finally got paid. The problem, though, was, you know, he did cross that line with all that criticism. He wasn't going to get paid anytime soon. And they were dealing with a situation where it probably was going to bubble over longer than they wanted. And, you know, that kind of thing spills over into a locker room. That's the danger when you're trying to build a culture and build a new team. If Jamal Adams is as influential a voice as he believed he was, other players certainly were going to hear that and start to question things in the organization too. But I wonder if he would have done this deal anyway, even if Jamal Adams hadn't popped off the way he did. Obviously, he knew that Jamal was unhappy and wanted a contract, but, you know, Joe Douglas was working on this trade for a month before he actually pulled the trigger. It was before the Daily News article, so maybe that haul was just too good to pass up.
I got to ask you one more question about this because it's been on my mind since this trade happened. Ralph, you mentioned Jamal Adams basically saying he had no problem with Adam Gase back in January when he wanted his money. Then he does all this and really takes all of the goodwill that he had built up and burns it down with a fan base so he can get traded. And ostensibly he had done that because he wanted the contract extension. Now he goes to Seattle and doesn't need the contract extension this year. I want to ask you, doesn't that make him a fraud in all this?
It certainly makes him a little bit hypocritical. You know, I don't know his reasoning for that. Sometimes it's not just money. It's this feeling of being wanted, this feeling of respect. Maybe the Seahawks have said to him, you know, we'll definitely do something with you. Although, you know, I think the Jets kind of made it clear they were eventually going to get something done. It could possibly just be that he wanted to go someplace that was closer to being a winner. I don't know. We don't really know what his reasons are. He was all over the map. But yeah, if you want to call him a fraud, that's fine. Hypocritical, that's fine too.
All right, let's switch over to the Giants for a second. Significant Giants news as Joe Judge was getting ready to begin his first training camp as head coach in East Rutherford. And, you know, interesting. We were all wondering how this would play out with what's going on with coronavirus, and Nate Solder, who has overcome some significant health challenges in the past and who has a son who deals with significant health challenges, decided to opt out. Ralph, did this surprise the Giants, and what do they do now at that left tackle position? I guess they have a first-round pick who's going to play there.
Yeah, you know, they weren't surprised. Nate Solder has been thinking about this for a while, even before the league and the union agreed to an opt-out situation for players. You know, he is definitely, and his son is definitely in the high-risk category. And, you know, look, any intelligent discussion about this disease begins with there are a lot of unknowns, and he doesn't know how the NFL is going to get through this, and then how he and his family would get through this. So they knew that. He was in contact with them. But they didn't know that during the part of the offseason where they could have planned for it. They didn't know it in free agency when they could have found another left tackle. They didn't know it necessarily when the draft hit. The good news is they were working on the offensive line anyway. So, yeah, now Andrew Thomas, their first-round pick, number 4 overall, will probably go right in at left tackle. They did sign a veteran Cam Fleming, who'll probably be their right tackle, but that hurts their depth because he was supposed to be their depth player. It's not a deep line anymore. When you lose a player who's been a starter as long as Solder, they can plug him in the starting lineup, but behind him, that's where it becomes a little iffy for the team.
All right, so obviously it's a very interesting time for all NFL players deciding to opt in, opt out of this season. They're all making very personal decisions that work for them and their families. And, every player is making that decision. And, Jeane, you had a chance to catch up with Sam Darnold, and they talked about a lot of things, but they certainly talked about how he decided to play this year.
Did you ever think about opting out? Because a lot of guys are opting out because they were worried about family and stuff.
Right. Different guys have different situations, so I can't speak on, kind of what the guys or, certain reasons why guys would be opting out. But for me, I live alone in an apartment in Jersey, so I really have no reason to opt out. And, I'm really optimistic about getting the season going and training camp going and all those things. So, I'm excited to kind of be back.
Obviously, it's completely different, mono and COVID-19, but were you able to take something away from that mono that helped you during this quarantine time? Because you had to be away from your team with mono, right, and you had to figure out what to do away from football.
Yeah. Glad you brought it up.
I'm sorry, I know.
No, I'm joking. I think I can definitely, I definitely took some things away from when I was sick early on in the season last year with mono and kind of having to stay away from people. I guess I was quarantined for a few weeks there because I was contagious. And I was kind of used to it already, but, the quarantine, it was kind of, I guess I got a head start on everyone, I guess you could say. But I did learn a few things and kind of how to stay in an apartment by myself for a few weeks. I got used to that, and I guess I did take some things away, but there are a lot of differences as well with COVID-19 and mono. So,
is it a weird feeling knowing that there's not going to be fans in the stadium? I mean, how as a quarterback there'll be no fans? Yeah,
it will be a little bit different. It will be a lot different, I think, especially for our fans and how much of an impact they have on the games. Even just, some touchdowns, like if a team is up by 3 points and it's late in the game and we score a touchdown and the fans are going nuts, and, that's a huge momentum swing. And, without the fans being there, if, we score a touchdown and now we're up 4 with, 2 minutes left in the game, and the crowd's not going, there's no crowd to go crazy or anything. I don't know if they're going to substitute crowd noise in or whatever the MLB has been doing, but it's definitely going to be a lot different without the fans.
What is it not having preseason games? How will that affect you and your team, especially with the new guys?
Yeah, no preseason games will be, for me, obviously, and for everyone else, it'll be different. For me, it's just, I got to stay ready. And, once we kick things off, it's going to be for real. Not having preseason games, it's definitely going to be just hopping right back into the fire. But, I think everyone's excited about it, and we just got to adapt.
And guys, Sam also said that without these preseason games, he feels bad for the guys that are on the bubble. And every time I think about that, I think of Damon Harrison, Snacks. I don't know if he'd be in the NFL without that 4th preseason game.
He's not the only one. Victor Cruz with the Giants. And there's so many undrafted free agents and rookies that got a shot because of that, some of them aren't even going to be in camp this year. They'll be cut before the teams get on the field.
Right. Victor Cruz, Wayne Corbett. I mean, if you think back, some of the best stories come out of this period of time. So it'll be interesting to see. And for, Joe Judge, how he will judge his players without preseason games. All things that we will keep our eye on going forward as we get into training camp. Ralph, Jeane, thanks so much. We will see you next week. Thanks for watching Football Night in New York.